There's been a lot of talk about OLED computer monitors, the idea of better picture quality due to perfect blacks and an instantaneous response time definitely sounds appealing. On top of that, OLEDs don't have a backlight, so don't have any risk of the dreaded backlight bleed that plagues even the most expensive LCD monitors. Do they really live up to the hype though? And what are the main drawbacks of using an OLED as a monitor? So, this year is the first time that an OLED TV has been available in the smaller 48-inch size. Typically, they're only 55 inches and larger. We bought the 48-inch LG C10 OLED to put it to the test on our monitor test bench and see how it performs. We've already reviewed the 55-inch model, which performs very similarly, so we won't be talking about it in this video. If you do want to see a more in-depth comparison between these sizes, then do let us know in the comments down below. Hi, I'm Daniel from Ratings.com, where we help people find the best products for their needs. Make sure you subscribe to our channel for the latest videos, or check out our website for the full review. First, we'll look at the design of the LG C10 and then move on to the picture quality. We'll look at the motion handling, input lag, and overall gaming performance. If you'd like to skip straight to our test results, then see the links in the description down below. We bought the smaller 48-inch C10 to test, but it's also available in larger sizes up to 77 inches. Of course, 48 inches is already on the large side for a monitor, so most people probably aren't interested in these larger models to put on their desk. Now, what this 48-inch size and 4K resolution means for you is a pixel density of about 92 pixels per inch. This sounds a bit low when you consider many people find the sweet spot to be about a 27-inch 1440p monitor that has 109 pixels per inch. Something to note though is that most people will sit further back from the larger 48-inch screen, so you don't want to be moving your head too much. As a result, in real usage, the visible pixel density is very good, but we'll talk about this more when we look at the text clarity later on in the review. Now, as far as the design goes, there's a few important considerations if you're looking to use a TV like this one as a monitor. First, as typical for a screen of this size, the ergonomic adjustments are limited. It's not like a typical monitor that you can easily rotate side to side or move up and down. If you care about this, then a third-party mount is probably the way to go. Something else to note is the inputs. For PC use, a DisplayPort connection is generally preferred. As typical of a TV, the C10 doesn't have a DisplayPort connection, so instead you'll need to connect via HDMI. This is fine, as we'll talk about later, because the ports are advertised to be HDMI 2.1, capable of supporting very high bandwidth signals. A third significant difference is that as a TV, it has some other features like a smart platform and a TV tuner. We won't talk about that much here, but you can check out our review of the 55-inch to see more. In short, it means you can put on the football in a particularly grueling Zoom call without anyone the wiser. And lastly, while most monitors will just shut off the screen when your PC turns off or goes to sleep, this isn't the case with the TV. As a result, you should keep the remote handy. Now, despite the differences from most monitors, the style of the C10 looks good. The low-profile stand supports it well and is very stable. It does stick back a lot though, so if you use the stand, you can't push it back against a wall to reclaim your desk space. You can also mount it on a wall or desk stand, but of course it's much larger than most monitors with a 300 by 200 VESA mount. If you do so though, then the total thickness is about 2 inches. The borders are also thin and look good. So that's it for the design. Now we'll move on to the picture quality. If you want to see any of these tests in more detail, see the review page on our website, which is linked down below. As we're talking about an OLED, the first thing to note is the contrast. OLED displays are classified as an emissive technology. Now, this is a simplification, but traditional LCD displays take a white backlight and filter away colors to produce the desired image. This filter isn't 100% effective, so blacks aren't completely pure. On the other hand, emissive technologies control the light emitted from each subpixel and shut off dark areas completely. Basically, this results in much deeper blacks, which is noticeable in a dark room and one of the most significant aspects of picture quality. Another aspect of this is there's no backlight bleed or IPS glow. Overall, if you care about the image in a dark room, then this will be an improvement. Now, while blacks are perfect, OLEDs have typically had problems with near black areas, like very dark grays. This tends to be visible as vertical or horizontal banding. Now, This is somewhat hard to evaluate as we found it varies between units and also over time. You might buy an OLED and notice vertical banding, only for it to change over time to bother you less, or unfortunately more. As a result, while the model we bought seems to handle dark scenes very well, with very minor issues, we don't know if this is a real improvement over previous models. Let us know if you buy this and how yours compares. Now for PC use, viewing angles tend to be very important. This is because the resolution of monitors tends to be high to maximize the on-screen real estate, and so people sit relatively close to read text and see details. When viewed from up close, the sides of the screen are at a larger angle, both horizontally and vertically. As a result, for LCD displays, IPS models with wide viewing angles tend to be favored over TN models that look bad from an angle. What does this mean for an OLED like this one? Well, the good news is that the image looks very accurate at an angle. It does behave differently to an IPS monitor though. While the brightness and gamma are consistent, colors do shift a bit. So now for the brightness. A bright monitor is important if you're in a brighter room to overcome glare. Something to note for this is that OLEDs tend to vary their screen brightness depending on the brightness of the image. This is called the ABL, or Automatic Brightness Limiter. By that I mean, if you have a dark background and open a small white window, the window will remain bright. But if you expand that window full screen, you might notice the brightness dropping. In some cases, ABL can be a good thing. It can allow prioritizing power to boost highlights in many scenes. For use as a monitor though, it's almost universally a bad thing. The good news is that LG is well aware of this issue and introduced a setting called peak brightness, so you can adjust the amount of ABL you want to see. In PC mode, this setting is locked to the lowest value. The brightness is about 250 nits, which should be fine for most people, and these brightness changes probably aren't noticeable in most cases, which is good. Having said that, if you want to enable the peak brightness setting, for example, to produce bright HDR highlights, then you can eke out a much more impactful image. In this case for HDR, we measured a peak of about 730 nits, which is great. The problem is that it can't be sustained over a large screen area, so you might notice the overall screen brightness drop in certain situations. So now we'll talk about the reflection handling. Unlike most monitors, the C10 is glossy. This might sound like a bad thing, but it really depends on your use and preferences. Remember that glossiness is independent of reflectivity. That is, you can have a matte screen that reflects a lot or a little, and the same applies for a glossy one. In the case of the C10, the anti-reflective coating is very effective, and it cuts out much of the light incident on the screen. This is great for a room with some lights, although any resulting reflections do remain defined. If you're planning to use this as a monitor, then clarity of text is very important. A quick note, you should be on PC mode for the clearest text, which allows the screen to correctly display a 444 or RGB signal without any chroma subsampling. Now, in terms of text clarity, there's a few things going for this monitor and a few against it. Let's start with the positive. The glossy finish means that each pixel and subpixel is clearly defined. There's none of the haziness you might see on a matte finish, which is great. The TV also has a very high resolution, so if you want to apply scaling to increase the text size, then the high pixel density can result in clearer text. And now for the flip side. This TV and other OLEDs have an atypical pixel arrangement. Instead of the usual red, green, blue subpixel structure, there's an additional fourth white subpixel. Only a maximum of 3 subpixels are ever in use at one time for each pixel. This means that on any pure color, if you look close, there's always dark regions. On top of that, only about 50% of the vertical space is filled with pixels. If you're far enough back, this all blends into a single color and isn't a problem. From up close though, when looking at text, you can see in our image that the text becomes a little bit harder to read. On top of that, many operating systems apply fancy algorithms to display text on the higher resolution subpixel layer. This is known as subpixel rendering. This tends to assume a standard subpixel layout, so the OLED alternative layout actually looks worse. Even tuning Windows ClearType, the results weren't as good as with the setting disabled. Overall though, while the text clarity is fine, it definitely isn't on the same level as a nice LCD display. And now a note on the color gamut. A wide color gamut is important if you want to display vivid colors, such as when playing HDR games. The C10 has a very good wide color gamut and is capable of displaying almost all of the DCI-P3 color space, making it a good choice for HDR. Now, a discussion of OLED picture quality wouldn't be complete without a mention of burn-in. In the case of an OLED or organic LED, this is where the image degrades over time as a result of the limited lifetime of the organic compound. We've tested this on our TVs to simulate normal TV use and don't expect it to be a problem for most people. Monitor use is different though, and there tends to be more static regions like taskbars and icons. As a result, we really don't know how much of a risk this is. If this is something you're concerned about, you should note that most warranties won't cover it, so you might need to look for one that specifically does, or avoid an OLED entirely. So now onto the motion, and this is where things get really interesting. We'll start by talking about the refresh rate. So first up, this has a maximum refresh rate of 120 Hz. This comes with some caveats though. The first is that for high bandwidth signals, this requires an HDMI 2.1 source. There's no HDMI 2.1 graphics cards available yet, but they are rumored to come out later this year. As a result, we haven't been able to test the capabilities of this display that require more than HDMI 2.0 bandwidth. Now, this is about to get a bit technical. For most people, it doesn't really matter much though, so feel free to skip ahead. What this means is that we're able to test 4K at 60 Hz with a full chroma signal for clear text, or 4K at 120 Hz with reduced color resolution in a 420 signal. 4K at 120 Hz with a 10-bit RGB signal should be supported when a compatible graphics card is released, but we haven't tested it. The maximum bandwidth of this TV is expected to be 40 gigabits per second, less than the full 48 gigabits per second available in the HDMI 2.1 specification. For most people, this probably doesn't matter much, but it does mean that 4K at 120 Hz with a 12-bit RGB signal is expected to be outside of the HDMI capabilities of this TV. Now onto the response time. You can learn more about response time in our motion video series, which is linked up here. A fast response time is crucial for gaming, as it's the time it takes for a display to change pixels from one color to the next. A slow response time can result in a blurry trail behind fast-moving objects, so it's quite important for gaming monitors to have a fast response time in order to reduce motion blur. OLED displays like the C10 have an almost instantaneous response time, with a small catch. Dark transitions can result in some overshoot. This is visible as slightly brighter smearing behind dark moving objects. It's still an excellent result though, and faster than any other monitor we've tested. It results in fairly clear motion without ghosting. Note though that in this image there is no visible flicker, so there is still persistence blur. Now, if you want the clearest motion, then it helps to flicker the image to clear up this type of persistence blur. On the C10, this can be done with the OLED motion setting. This can be applied for 60 Hz or 120 Hz signals and definitely works well, as you can see in our moving logo photo. It's not for everyone though, as it does add visible flicker. Now let's have a look at the input lag. A low input lag is important to feel responsive, especially when playing fast-paced games. The lower the input lag, the lower the delay between an action in-game and when you see it on the screen. At about 10 milliseconds, it definitely feels responsive and shouldn't be a problem for most people. It's a bit higher than some other gaming monitors, but it's unlikely to be noticeable unless you're a really competitive gamer. And lastly, for the variable refresh rate support. This TV supports FreeSync variable refresh rates, with a range from 40 Hz up to 120 Hz. This is a fairly wide range and should be good for most people. The TV is also certified to be compatible with NVIDIA G-Sync graphics cards, and we were able to verify this on our RTX 2070. Overall, it's a great result and means you can expect an almost tear-free gaming experience. So overall, the LG C10 is definitely an interesting TV to use as a monitor. The use of an OLED panel results in a few distinct advantages over most traditional LCD displays. Most notable are the excellent picture quality, including wide viewing angles and instantaneous response time. On top of that, this display has a relatively high refresh rate of 120 Hz and supports FreeSync with G-Sync compatibility. There are definitely some drawbacks though. The text clarity is a bit worse when viewed from close-up, and we don't know how much of a risk burn-in might be. So that's it. What do you think of the LG C10? Are you going to buy it? Let us know what you think down below. You can check out all of the measurements on our website. And if you like this video, subscribe to our channel or become an insider on the website for access to our latest test results first. Also, we're currently hiring here in our offices in Montreal for various positions. So if you want to help people find the best product for their needs, have a look at the careers page on our website. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.